In the last unit's recordings, I talked a little bit about concatenation when we were doing the lookup function. I want to talk a little bit more about concatenation in this unit because it is something that you end up doing a lot, and if you can get a good control of it, you can make some very professional looking query results. Once again, I'm going to be using pizza orders. So I'm going to open that up. And here's the query we created before. Today I'm going to create a different one, kind of around the same concepts. I'm going to build a query based on the customers table. So I'm going to create query and design view using the customers table. And I'm going to bring in the customer's first name and last name, and actually I'm going to concatenate those together to display as Volker Gall, for instance. So in this field I'm going to use the builder, and just so that you can see a little bit better what I'm typing, I'm going to zoom in on that. Alright, so down here. And now one way to build these concatenated fields, to build any calculated field for that matter, is to use the tables. So I'm going to come down here to the tables, double click it, and bring in the customer fields. There they are. And now I can start bringing these in. I want the customer first name, and I want to concatenate. The concatenation operator is the ampersand, shift 7. I want to concatenate a space to that. That space is surrounded, can't hardly see it, let's move my mouse up here, and there we go. Space is surrounded by quotation marks. I can use apostrophes there, I believe, but I normally use quotation marks. And then concatenate to that the last name. So here's what my equation looks like. Customer first name concatenated to a space, and then concatenated to that is the customer's last name. And now one of the other things we typically do when we create calculated fields, concatenated or not, is assign a name to them. So I'm going to press the home key. It takes me back to the beginning. And I'm going to immediately assign a name to this. I'll call it first last, followed by a colon. That's the rule. The field name is followed by a colon, and then the formula itself. So that's done. So now we can close my zoom here and click on OK. And there's my calculated field. So now I can run this and expand that, and everything looks cool. Okay. However, everything is sorted by first name. Actually, it's sorted by first last, so effectively it's sorted by first name. What if I want these sorted by last name? Can't do anything to the first last field because that's concatenated first last name. So what I need to do to sort by last name and then by first name, in case there's a tie, is bring them in as separate fields. So I'm going to double click them up here, added it as a field, double click it here, add it as a field, sort by last name and first name. And if we then run that, now these are sorted by Aikman, Andorfer, ATEC, and so on. So they're sorted, and here's a black, and I've got Joan and Randy. They're in the right order as well, but now I've got the names appearing twice. That's not a problem. I just turn these off. And so we're using these fields for sorting, but we're not displaying them. And now I get the results that I'm looking for. Let's create another field in that table, this time with first name, last name, just to get another example of how to do the concatenation. So I'm going to add, I think I'll insert it here. Doesn't really matter where it goes. I'm going to insert it here, and this one I'll call customer name. I'm going to use that later. And instead of going to the builder, I'm just going to type it right here. I'm going to type CUST last name, concatenated with quotation marks, comma, space, because the last name, comma, and then a space, both inside the quotation marks, and then concatenate the customer first name. So I did basically the same thing, but I skipped the builder. If you want to see that, I'll zoom in on it using the builder here. There's the builder, there's the equation, put my mouse on it, zoom in here real quick, and there's the equation. It looks very similar to the other one. The only thing that's different is the first name, or the last name is first and then the first name. Click on OK. And if I use that one instead of this one, I can now sort by this because they're in the right order already. So I don't really need these anymore, but I'll leave them there. It won't hurt anything. Run it, and I get the same sort order. Okay, but if I sorted by this concatenated field, I would get the same results as I'm getting over here. At least the order would be the same. There's a number of different ways you can concatenate things. Let's just do one more example, and let's pretend that all of the phone numbers that are in here are cell phones, and I want to designate that. So I'm going to add one more calculated field. Again, we'll insert it here. Won't let me do it. Come on. Just click here and then do an insert. How's that? Doesn't want to. Well, another way we can insert is to put it over here at the end. So I'm going to bring in the phone number, and I'm going to concatenate to that. Oops, I think I just wiped it out. Let's bring in the phone number. There we go. Click on the end and create a calculated field. Concatenate to that in quotation marks, a space, and then in parentheses, cell phone. So you don't have to concatenate just one character. You can concatenate an entire, these are called literals. You're going to literally attach these characters to that calculated field. Should give this a name. So once again, I'm going to go home and then say just phone colon. So now that field has a label. Can run it, and notice now the word cell is attached, or cell phone is attached to every single one of the phone numbers. So using concatenation, you can do some pretty complicated manipulations of strings, text, which is what you're typically going to manipulate. And we're going to do another example in the second recording, so if you're still a little rusty on this, check in with the second recording, and we'll do an even more complicated example.